What if I told you that everything you see, touch, and even think might be an illusion? That the chair you're sitting on, the phone in your hand, even your own memories, could all be a grand deception? Welcome to the problems of philosophy, where nothing is certain and questioning reality is just the beginning. If you're new here, welcome to our channel, where we explore the deepest questions of philosophy, one book at a time. Let's dive right in. Let's start with a bang. Picture this. You're sipping your morning coffee, enjoying the warmth and the rich aroma. As you take a sip, something clicks. You realize you don't actually know that coffee is real. Wait, what? Yeah, let me unpack this. That steaming brew in your mug isn't exactly as it seems. What you see is sunlight bouncing off the cup. What you feel is your hand responding to heat signals. Is the coffee itself real, or is it all a mix of perceptions and sensations? Enter Bertrand Russell's The Problems of Philosophy. In this thought-provoking masterpiece, Russell challenges us to confront the limits of human understanding. His opening lines are a wake-up call for anyone who thinks they know too much. Our senses can trick us, like when a stick appears bent when submerged in water, or when we mistake a bright star for being close by only to discover its distant glow. He even questions whether the world around us is truly real or just a figment of our imagination. Remember that time you thought you saw a flying pig? Well, Russell would say, "Don't be so sure, because all we really know are our senses and our thoughts." As you read further, you'll find yourself lost in a maze of philosophical riddles. Like, what is knowledge, and how do we know we have any? How can we be sure that our beliefs are true? And what's the difference between appearance and reality anyway? Don't worry, I'm here to guide you through this mind-bending journey. I've got some notes to help you make sense of it all. Part 1. The Limits of Knowledge. We're starting with a bang. Russell kicks off Part 1 by challenging the very foundation of knowledge, our senses. He argues that our sensory experiences can deceive us, like that bent stick in water or the twinkling stars that might be millions of light years away. Just because we see or feel something doesn't mean it's really there. Mind blown yet? Stick with me. Russell's about to blow your mind even more. He introduces the idea of skepticism, the idea that we can't truly know anything for certain. What are you telling me all this time I've spent studying, eating, and breathing for absolutely nothing? Well, not quite. Russell isn't suggesting that we abandon knowledge altogether. Instead, he's calling for a revolution in thinking. We need to be more aware of the limitations of our senses and be cautious about accepting things at face value. Now you might be wondering, if we can't trust our senses, how can we know anything at all? Russell's answer is surprisingly simple. Mathematics and logic. 2 plus 2 will always equal 4, whether you're on Earth or on a planet where gravity is double. These truths aren't tied to our physical surroundings. They're universal. Why? Because they exist in our minds. Russell believed that knowledge based on logic and math was more reliable, because it didn't depend on our senses. In other words, he argued that we can't know things for sure, but we can have justifiable beliefs based on logical reasoning and evidence. Hold up. You're probably thinking, wait a minute. If our senses are so unreliable, how can we be sure that mathematics and logic are any better? Well, great question. Russell believed that our logical and mathematical knowledge is based on our perceptions of the world around us. However, he argued that we can still use logic and mathematics to gain knowledge about the world, even if our perceptions are sometimes wrong. This is because logic and mathematics are based on a set of assumptions and rules that we agree upon rather than on our senses. For example, we assume that there is such a thing as a real world outside of our minds, and that we can use logic to understand that world. Part 2. The Nature of Reality. Russell's mind games continue in Part 2, where he takes on Plato. It's the idea that the physical world is just a copy of perfect forms. Imagine a world where everything we see is just a shadow of something more real. Sounds like a sci-fi movie, right? Well, it's actually Plato's theory of forms. Plato believed that the physical world was full of imperfect copies of perfect eternal forms. So when we see a circle, it's just a flawed version of the perfect form of the circle. Russell modernizes this idea by introducing his theory of descriptions. He argues that many of our statements about the world are really about our own thoughts and perceptions. When we say there's a unicorn in the garden, we don't mean that there's a magical horse-like creature there. We just mean that there's something in our minds that we're calling a unicorn. Now you might be scratching your head wondering, what's the big deal? What's so hard about that? Well, Russell points out that this idea has some mind-boggling implications. For example, if all we're talking about are our own thoughts and perceptions, does that mean that reality doesn't exist outside of our minds? And if we can't know anything for sure, what's the point of studying philosophy at all? Before we move on, I want to address these common misconceptions about Russell's ideas. Some people think that Russell's theory of descriptions means that language is just a game, and that we can say anything we want without any reference to reality. But this isn't quite right. While Russell did argue that many of our statements are about our own thoughts and perceptions, he still believed that language could be used to refer to things in the world around us. The key, according to Russell, is to be clear about what we're saying and to avoid making false statements. Another misconception is that Russell's work is somehow connected to the Soviet Union. While Russell was a vocal critic of totalitarianism and war, he had no affiliation with the Soviet Union. Part 3. The value of philosophy. Russell wraps up his masterpiece by tackling the age-old question, why bother with philosophy? After all, we've just learned that we can't know anything for sure. What's the point of all this questioning and uncertainty? According to Russell, the value of philosophy lies in its ability to free us from dogmatism, which is the tendency to cling to beliefs without questioning them. By showing us the limits of human knowledge, philosophy encourages us to be open-minded and to challenge our assumptions about the world around us. Sure, we can't know things for sure, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to understand the world around us. As Russell said, we can never be quite sure that we are not in error, but we can make ourselves less wrong through philosophy. We learn to question everything and to seek out evidence and logical reasoning to support our beliefs. In other words, philosophy isn't about finding all the answers. It's about asking the right questions and being willing to change our minds when faced with new evidence. Why is this important? Because it helps us to be more rational and clear-headed thinkers. It also helps us to be more tolerant of other people's beliefs, even if we disagree with them. After all, if we're all just fallible humans trying to make sense of an uncertain world, then we should be willing to listen to other perspectives and to consider the possibility that we might be wrong. So, what's the takeaway from the problems of philosophy? Embrace uncertainty. The world is a mysterious place, and we're just here for the ride. Russell reminds us that we can't know anything for sure. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to understand the world around us. By questioning everything and using logic and evidence to support our beliefs, we can become wiser and more tolerant thinkers. Plus, it's just plain fun to blow people's minds with philosophical mind games. Just make sure they don't blow yours in the process. So next time someone tells you that something is just how it is, hit them with Russell's wisdom. Maybe, but how do you know? Thanks for joining me on this journey through the problems of philosophy. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a like and subscribe to our channel for more mind-blowing philosophical explorations. Until next time, keep questioning, keep thinking, and above all, keep being human.